Hey friends, welcome back to People Person. I'm your host, the diva herself, Kate Noel, head of people operations at Morning Brew Inc. Every year, the corporate world suddenly becomes obsessed with goals, quarterly goals, stretch goals, SMART goals, OKRs, KPIs, the whole shebang. It's like an alphabet soup, child. I don't know, but here's the truth. Most of those goals are oftentimes forgotten by Q2. So today's conversation, we're getting real about how to actually make goal setting meaningful, sustainable, and aligned with real performance. And not just an exercise we can just check off and say, well done. So joining me is the brilliant and sensational Garima Shah, who is the president and co-founder of Genie, who knows how to help teams think about goals and connect that to engagement and impact. We're talking about what most HR pros might get wrong when it comes to goal setting, and that's okay. We're going to learn how to track progress without burnout and how to bring humanity back into performance. So why don't we dive right in? And Garima, thank you for being here, and I definitely want to hear your answer to this question. How are employee goals for the year important, and what's the biggest misconception HR leaders carry into the process?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this conversation.
Yes.
I absolutely love goal setting because it's one of those things where you talk about it and it's like all up in the ether. It's like, I'm going to set my goals, my New Year's resolutions. And it's like,
Yes.
then it's January 2nd. You're like, never mind. I don't think I want to do any of those things.
Ciao.
Right? So when I think about HR leaders specifically, and I would say more broadly, just people leaders, there's often this misconception that the more goals, the better. And that someone should go into the year with this huge list of things that they should achieve. And it's always been said that you are usually miscalculate how long it's going to take something that you set for a year, and you underestimate how short something is going to take where you set it for a couple weeks, right? So when you think about these long, lofty 1 year, and you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to get there because it's a whole year away. So I think it's really about not having 15, 20 multiple goals. It's what is that one or two things that are the absolute most important thing to you to get done this year? And often it's about your zone of genius, and it's not about taking on these goals that could be, oh, I want you to learn this. I want you to pick up this skill. I want to, I don't know, master this. I want to sell this client. There's so many things that can be added to these goals. But if you just say there's two things that no matter what, I'm going to get done this year, max three. I don't think anybody should have more than three,
Okay.
but max three things that no matter what, I'm going to get done this year. And those become your North Star. And everything that you're doing is about that. Look, I run a company. Everything we talk about is revenue. So I prioritize based on revenue. That is my number one goal. That is all I care about.
Make that money.
So yeah, make that money. That's what a business needs to do. And so as in every part of the company, every single person should have that one overarching, if I do nothing else today, but I get a little bit closer, even 0.5% closer to this goal, I've won. And that winning is really important when it comes to goals.
I love that. And not for nothing, I feel like because we're at the top of the year right now, I feel like I want to apply exactly what you just said, even to my personal life, like low-key, because I'm just like, wait, hold on. That is so true. We do think of like the longer goals, and we are assuming like the timing of it makes sense, but then when we're actually executing the plan to get there, we've underestimated or overestimated based on it being quarterly or yearly. But with you saying that, why do you think we do that? Like whether it's professionally or even personally when we are creating those goals, why do we think we overshoot or we're just shy of what it should have actually been?
Because I think humans have no concept of time, right? I mean, like, how often, look, I do it. How often do we doom scroll and it's 30 minutes later and you're like, what did I just do for
Oh,
the
no,
past
see,
30 minutes?
you don't have to tell on me like that, Garima. You're in my business, girl. You're in my business. But yes, you're so right.
We are just, I think, not good. I mean, time is this weird thing, right? It just keeps going and you never get it back and you can't earn anymore and you can't fill it back up. And once it's out, it's out. And every second matters. And it's really hard to think that way because it's just a weird construct. So I think the reason why we're so crappy at like time planning is because time is a weird construct and you really don't know, right? Like, so it's not about how long this should take. It's about how much better you can get towards it every single day. I'll give you an example. Working out. I love to work out. I try to be healthy and we all want to lose weight. Who doesn't? At the beginning of every year, oh my God, I'm gonna get in shape. I'm gonna lose weight. And I used to do this thing, I'm sure some of you have done it too, where I was really good for a couple months and all of a sudden I'd have a cheat meal and be like, forget it. I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I've already blown it, right? And you start feeling that way and you're like, well, if I just don't work out for the next week, it won't really matter because I've already blown my goal. Instead, if we started thinking, well, if all I needed to do, instead of eating like all of those things, this 5 pieces of pizza today, if I just had like 4.5, wouldn't that be better? And if I just like these tiny micro changes that get you better and closer to your goal every day are so much more sustainable than these large sweeping, I'm going to change everything today, right now, and for the future, because your brain just cannot measure that construct of time in that way.
Man, wait, so are you saying that's like your ideal framework then when it comes to goal setting?
Yes.
Like doing the tiny bits to get to the larger goal?
Tiny bit.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It should always be these little things. Like, for example, I've had someone on my team say, I want to become a better people leader. I've never been a people leader before. I'm going to come. And it's not like today they're going to be a better people leader. And it's not like tomorrow you're going to say, oh, you're just going to learn how to interview. But there's little things like, okay, let's break this up into a million segments. There is how to handle tough conversations. There is how to inspire people, how to public speak, how to set goals, how to have quarterly conversations, how to do one-on-ones. And let's come up with these 30 different things. And if every week you can just learn a little piece of one of these things, how much better are you at the end of the year versus I'm just going to be a great people leader. And that's just, it's too hard. It's too, like, as I said, up in the ethers, and we just can't get there.
Oh, so how granular do I need to get? Is it weekly? Is it by the day? Is it by the hour? Like the millisecond? Like how much of the planning with the help of ChatGPT, AI, Pinterest, TikTok, all the tools like the people want to do when putting these plans together, like how specific of a time frame do I need to get with this framework that you're mentioning now?
I personally believe that it depends on the goal itself.
Okay.
And it depends on how lofty that goal is. And the more lofty, probably the more granular you need to be, which is completely opposite. Most people think the more lofty the goal, well, you can have like these longer timelines, but the more lofty the goal, the more granular, because it becomes so overwhelming so quickly. Like if you said, hey, I want to lose 50 pounds, well, that's really lofty. If you said, well, okay, I'm going to lose 50 pounds in the course of 3 years, and this is what happens every month in order for that to happen, it's taking a lofty goal and making that much shorter. When you have a simple goal that says, I want to get this paper done, okay, well, that's fine. I can do a paragraph at a time and I can do that over 2 days and no big deal. But it's depending on how lofty the goal is, that's how small those time segments should be.
Okay, so let's talk about the tracking of those goals now, right? Because something that I always hear as an HR person is like sometimes we are beating a dead horse when it's like checking in, tracking, letting people be reminded of the things that we need to do. So seeing this as an example, like what would you advise, whether it's HR folks or just managers in general, how to track the progress of these goals without it feeling like a dreaded like check-in ritual with like their direct reports or colleagues or peers or anything in general? Because even in how you're explaining it to me now, I'm jazzed up. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, like this is exactly how we should do it. But you're you. And so there's not many versions of you out there. But like, how would you teach that or develop that in someone else by your experience?
Yeah, I think it's really about letting the person who's setting their goal have ownership over it. I think sometimes what we do as people managers and HR leaders is that we set goals for people and we think that we understand what they want and we take the words out of their mouth. I know I do it all the time. I'm like, I've done this for a million years. I know what you need. And at the end of the day, you don't. Like you don't know whether it's personal, professional. There's so many other planes that people work on that are outside of their job. And it's important to kind of take all of that and let the person who is setting that goal take their own ownership. So, and ask them the question, would you feel successful? So let's say that we set this goal that you want to be the top salesperson in the company by the end of the year. Let's say that that's your goal, or you want to increase your conversion by 10%. Maybe those are your goals. I think the question needs to come back to the person. What do you think are the steps? What are the skills that you think that you need to get in order to do that? What are the specific weaknesses that we need to improve upon in order for you to get closer to that goal? And those become these micro goals, and it puts it in the hands of the person who's setting the goal as opposed to the HR leader or manager, because now they're saying, oh, I see it. And if I did this, in order for me to have better conversion, I need to listen to 10 calls, 10 recorded calls. That's what I need to do. I know that that'll make me better. Okay, well, did you do that? Because you said that that's what's going to make you successful. Did you do that? And that is a much easier check-in because I am telling you what success looks like for me. And look, we all want dopamine all the time. winning is important.
Mhm.
So allowing people to have these micro wins, allowing people to say that, oh, I did this little thing and now I won because of it, it just makes them more motivated to get to the next goal.
So the question is so interesting though. Does that make you feel successful? Like I feel like the word feel is really important, but what if you're in a situation where they're giving you the answer that you know is not the right answer to that question? Like I can easily say, would that make you feel successful? And they're like, no, I think blah, 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 blah would make me feel successful. But you being the more experienced people manager, you know that's not the right direction. How can you kind of walk back out of that or maybe redirect? Like, how do you make sure that they're looking at the right thing to make them still feel fully invested in achieving that
Sure.
goal? Yeah.
I think it's being a toddler and being like, but why?
No,
But why?
Lord.
Hold on, but wait, but I'm really confused. How does this correlate to this? Like, I don't understand. And look, people's synapses are different. The way that they correlate things are different than we do. So maybe there is something in their head that tells them if they go to the grocery store at 2 a.m. every day, it'll help them closer to the shelves. I don't know. Doesn't make any sense to me, but potentially maybe that makes sense for them. But consistently asking why, oftentimes these, and I can tell you in past lives, these quarterly reviews, these annual reviews feel like a box. You know, like you said, you have to take a box and you just kind of go through it and you're not getting to the heart of what it is that they're talking about. You're just saying, what's your goal? Okay, how are you going to get there? Okay, we're going to check in next quarter and see if you did it. You cool? Instead, if someone says, well, my goal is I'm going to be a better salesperson, but because of doing that, I'm going to go to the grocery store. And you're like, wait, what? What does one have to do? Explain this to me and like make me understand how your brain is working that you believe that this is better. Oh, it's better because then I'll wake up earlier, I'll get to the gym, and then I'll have more endorphins in the morning, and therefore I'll be better at my sales skills. Okay, let's have that conversation. But I think really asking those why questions and not allowing the person to get off the hook until they have truly expressed how these things are going to get them closer to a much bigger, lofty goal is how we're going to get better as an organization.
So when you talk about performance review, you know my ears perked up because that's a word of love language for me as an HR person. So with you being in your like C-level suite group conversations where it's an executive team or you're talking to your HR person about goal setting and how it relates to performance reviews, how do you feel they are being handled in a traditional sense? If that's happening in your company right now, then I would love to hear a little bit more about what that conversation looks like. And if it's not, what is the thing that you think should be changing when it comes to goal setting and how it's pairing with performance reviews in general? Because performance reviews are typically twice a year if you're doing them well. You have like the mid-year, then you have the end-of-year review. But the goal is the conversation you should be having throughout the year, supposedly. But do you feel like that's happening in the way that it should right now? How are you having that conversation with your partner?
Look, I think it can always get better. It can always get better. But I think that one of the things that is most important, and you said it a few times, the word conversation. Goal setting, performance reviews aren't a one-time thing. They're not one and done. They're not gone. You know what pisses me off about performance reviews more than anything?
What?
You go to school every day. And when you do badly on a test, you get the grade and you know you did badly. And there's no ambiguity, right? Like you got a 70 out of 100, you know you got a 70, someone tells you what you did wrong. Then you get into the corporate world and you do something wrong in January and someone tells you in July during your quarterly or your performance review, like, hey, by the way, you screwed up in January. Like, what? Why didn't you just tell me in January so I could have made this better? And I think that lack of conversation is really what makes this such a difficult process. If all you're doing is a twice a year performance review, a performance review to me is a formality. It should be nothing more than the piece of paper. Really managing performance is a weekly one-on-one with your direct reports, one that is managed by the employee and the next one that's managed by the employer, right? Like you should be able to have that conversation where, hey, this week I'm going to talk about something that's important to me. Next week I'm going to talk about something that's important to you. I'm going to give you feedback in the moment, in the time of. And at the beginning of every single one-on-one, we're going to put our eye on what we said we were going to accomplish this month, this week, this year. And we're going to keep thinking about that so that it's top of mind and we don't get bogged down with all the stress day-to-day tasks that are inevitably going to come up. That's true performance management. And that's why I have a problem with this idea of just like quarterly and annual reviews. We have to do them. I get it. But it should be whatever we talk about there should be so like, I know exactly what that person's going to say because I work with them every day. I'm close to them. I know what their goals are. I know how to help them get there. And honestly, I really do make all of my people do SWOT analysis, personal SWOT analyses, so they know their strengths and weaknesses, and they're coming in telling me what they would like to improve on, what their opportunities are, and then we're working on their zone of genius together.
Oh my God. I literally was going to ask you who should own the creation of their goals, right? Because I also think that sometimes the managers are the one that's saying, well, look, this is what I need from you. This is how you can contribute to my team. X, Y, and Z, hit the road, let's get it done. And there's other spaces where it sounds like what you're saying, where it's like, no, I'm caring about what you would like to see for yourself. What's your zone of genius? How can I support that? I can confirm if it supports the business values, and we can move from there. So in your opinion, you think it should be employee-led and just supported by a people manager?
Absolutely. So there's a story about JFK going to NASA, and he was touring NASA, and he kept asking everybody, like, well, what do you do here? And I'm an astronaut. I'm going to go to the moon. I'm a scientist. I'm going to go to the moon. And everybody kept saying this. So he meets a custodian. He says, oh, what do you do here? And the guy says, well, I keep the floors clean in order to make sure that the astronauts don't trip and we can get a man to the moon. And that understanding of vision, goal setting isn't about an individual in any company. It starts with the company vision and the company goal. And if everybody in the company is on the same page as to where you're going and where your vision is, it is a lot easier for them to define what their goals are and how those fit into the larger vision of the company. But if you've done a poor job talking about how you're going to get a man on the moon and why that specific person's job really matters in getting the man to the moon, if you haven't done that, no one's going to ever be able to set a goal that makes any sense for the organization, because then they're going to be like, oh, well, I'm just going to go play with the stars, and I'm going to go, I don't know, mine for diamonds, right? Like, it's all of these different things. You need to have this very clear, and then you have everybody on the right bus saying, we're going here. This is, as a company, we are going here. If you are on this bus, this is where you're going. Now you're going to find a seat, and you're going to tell me how that seat is going to help us get closer to wherever this bus is going.
Man, okay, but what happens when the goal change? Because that happens, right? Life, they change all the time. As a leader, what are the ways that I can ensure that, like, I'm doing or handling the situation well with that change? Because if there's too much change, people feel weary, like, okay, they don't know what they're doing. Like, I'm not sure if I'm on the right team to make sure that we're heading in the right direction. In your experience, whether you have an example of when an idea or a goal has changed and you had to be the one at the top of the meeting to say, well, here, guys, this is what's different from what we thought before. Like, what's the best practice and tools to still keep people motivated?
I think there's two things.
Okay.
First of all, when you think about getting a man on the moon, which I always use that example, that is not, there's a million ways to get to that goal. There's a million things that are going to change, and then there's a million different ways to get a man to the moon. But at the end of the day, you're getting a man to the moon. So in our company, we're going to be an accounts receivable automation software that disrupts the space. There's a million ways to do that. I can build different software. I can do different distribution. I can change my sales tactics. There's a million ways to do that. But that goal does not change. That company vision does not change. Nike's just do it does not change. So that shouldn't change. The entire vision and organization of where you're going, which should be super simple, should always be what it is. The goals on the way there will change multiple times because we don't actually know how to do it. Because if we already knew, when JFK was walking around, if you already knew how to get the man to the moon, it would already been there. But we didn't know how. And that's why we had to change it a million times and try things and iterate to get there. And if every conversation you're having is saying, hey, we need to change this and pivot, because in order to get closer, we realized that what we tried over here just didn't work. So now we're going to pivot this a little bit because this is how we're going to get closer to this long-term goal. But I do think it comes back to the organizational goal. And whether you're thinking about a company or a family or even your personal life, there is an ethos. There's something that says, this is what drives me. This is who I am. This is my purpose. And I'm always going to be close to that purpose. And my goals are always going to be centered around what that purpose is, whether it's the company, whether it's my own personal purpose. But that's what's going to happen. And that's how my goals are set. And they can change a million times as long as the purpose doesn't.
Yeah, that needs to be the thing that's fixed. In whatever way we get there, we're just going to know that the destination is still the same.
Yes.
I live for that. Okay, so looking ahead then, what's changing in how we need to set goals, whether it's like hybrid work, rapid change, AI influencing how we even set ourselves up in like the day-to-day? And with that being said, how should HR or just leaders in general prepare for that?
I mean, how did we prepare for the advent of electricity? We can't, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Like, I think that things are changing and will always change, especially if you think about Moore's Law and you think about how quickly technology is changing and evolving on a day-to-day basis. It's going to keep happening. And the best way, and I can't stress this enough, I know I said it before, transparency and relationships is how this is going to happen. Goal setting, all of these things cannot be happening in a vacuum. We're all evolving every day. We're all changing. Everything around us is changing every day. And if we pretend like these things aren't happening and we live in this vacuum and 6 months later we come and look at it and say, well, that didn't make any sense, that's a disservice to literally everybody involved. But if we just talk about, hey, this is changing, this just happened,
Right.
AI just screwed up our entire plan, and that's just the way that it is, and we're going to have to pivot now, and let's get you involved in how we do that. I also think that goal setting is less about goals and more about regrets.
What do you mean by that?
I think that you should always think about what you don't want to regret for the year, not what you want to do. How do you want to, if you did this? So one of my favorite books, I was telling someone this earlier, is What Alice Forgot. And it's a fiction book, but she wakes up, she has, and I'm only telling you the first 5 pages, so I promise not spoiler alert.
You're good.
But she wakes up and she has short-term amnesia, and she forgets the last 10 years of her life. So it is her 39-year-old brain waking up in her 29-year-old, or sorry, her 29-year-old brain waking up in her 39-year-old body.
Right.
And her 29-year-old self is judging everything, right? Like, why are you wearing that? Who are your friends? I can't believe you married that guy. What are your kids like? How come you're not a nice person? How come you are a nice person? I'm proud of you. I'm not proud of you. And so I think about that every day. I'm 42. And I think about, would my 32-year-old self be proud of me? Would she regret some of the decisions I made? Would she tell me that I'm doing a great job? Would she be surprised at the decisions I'm making right now? What about my 52-year-old self? What would my 52-year-old self say about me? And that's why I think it's about regrets. It's about not regretting. Your goals should be, how do I get closer to my purpose? How do I get closest to my zone of genius so that I don't look back 10 years from now and regret the things that I did right now? Those should be my goals. They should always be about, how do I ensure that I finish this year, I finish this quarter, I finish this day without regretting something, without something I'm going to look back at in 10 years and be like, well, why'd you do that?
Man, I don't know how I started to feel like Oprah, because this is giving book club right now. I need the title of this book one more time. What Alice Forgot?
What Alice Forgot.
No, I actually love that. And I had to take a second to gather myself, because who wants to have a life of regret in any part of your life? And you want to be able to know that you gave yourself the shot to at least try and consider whatever it is that you put in front of yourself. And I don't know, at the tender age of 35, my 25-year-old self will be judgy as hell, probably. Girl,
yeah.
What did you do that for?
Why would that be your goal? Or maybe they're like, damn girl,
right.
you killed it.
Hey, yeah. You ate that. You ate that. And
you did that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to be more of that. And so taking the tactical things you just mentioned, the frameworks that make the most sense, this is going to ensure the 10 year from now, the 10 year behind, and the person you are now is proud of whatever way that you were able to achieve those goals. And also, life happens. And so maybe if you don't achieve those goals, it's still okay. But you put your best foot forward and I don't know, you could try it again. God forbid you want to give something more than just one try.
Absolutely. And also, sometimes the things you thought were a good decision 10 years ago were absolutely wrong. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
But you get to see that and be like, oh, that moment that I thought that this was going to happen and it didn't happen. Wow, all these doors opened, and look at where I am 10 years from now because of that.
God, okay, I have to be nosy. Forgive me. If you want me to mind my business, I will shut this whole thing down and I will leave you alone, Garima. But what is a goal for yourself that you had that you were gung-ho about? You're yeah, this is it. And then you flipped it and were just actually, never mind. And what gave you that aha moment?
I don't know why, but when I was 18 years old, I thought that I was going to write a book by the time I was 35. I wrote this down somewhere. I don't even like to write. Let's just be really clear. I just was like, I'm going to be a published author. This is what I'm going to do.
Duh.
And I remember the stress on my 30th birthday and then on my 32nd birthday. And I'm like, I need to start writing this book. What am I going to write it about? What do I even have to say? And as I got closer, I think that I had a meltdown when I was 34. And I was like, I was supposed to write a book. And literally for the life of me, I couldn't think of anything to write about or any reason to want to write this. And I just had to be this was a dumb goal. This was an 18-year-old kid saying, oh, wouldn't it be cool if, and somehow I chiseled it in stone in my brain and decided that if I didn't do it, I was a major failure in life. And the level of anxiety that it caused me was so ridiculous. And I look back at that now and I'm like, why did I even care? Like,
Like, who
why
told you
did it
to do
even
that?
matter? Like, why did it even matter? And I think a lot of us, I know I do sometimes, and this is why I always talk about these like lofty goals. We set these ridiculous, lofty, like, wouldn't it be nice? So by the time I'm this age, or by the time this happens, like 40 is a big milestone, right? You think of 40, like by the time I'm 40, all this. In my opinion, when my parents turned 40, I thought their life ended. And so when I turned 40, I was like, oh my God, I have to make sure all these things. And then you get past that and you're like, none of that was important. Like,
No.
am I healthy? Am I happy? Is my family healthy? Am I doing the things I want to do? Am I enjoying my life on the daily? Do I have regrets? Like, and if I get to answer all of those questions, do I get to live in my zone of genius? And I think that's been a switch that flipped for me, is that my goal every day, no matter what, is to define my purpose. My purpose is I like to solve big, complicated problems because I have a lot of fun with that. And I really, really love crazy, complicated, big problems with simple solutions. That's what I like to do. That is my purpose. And I love to live in that zone of genius. And so my goal every day is to do the things that do that. For example, I am not the most detail-oriented person. If you told me to be an accountant, I'd be like, I hate my life. Like, accountants are great. I am not that person. I'm just not. And I have amazing people who work with me that are, but I am not that person. Understanding that I'm not good at that takes a lot. Like, it's hard to say I suck at these things. And it's hard to say I'm going to just keep running towards my zone of genius and that's my goal every day, not doing all these things and trying to get better at things that I am just not inherently good at. I'm going to really focus on honing my skills, and my goal every single day is that. How do I stay in my zone of genius every single day? How do I maintain my purpose every single day? And how do I ensure that I'm doing the same for all those around me?
Man, okay, so if you could give advice, because I know you said you wouldn't write the book, even though you had the obsession to write the book, but then quickly realized, what the hell was I thinking? But if you had to write a tagline for an HR leader as like the one piece of advice when it comes to creating engagement and creating impact with goal setting for the year, what would you tell us, good people, of like, what's the important thing to make sure it gets done in the best way possible?
I would say focus on someone's zone of genius and hyper deprioritization. Hyper deprioritization. Start taking things out that don't fit. Most of the things don't. Hyper deprioritization. That is what real goal setting is about. Take care of all the crap and just get left with the big bulky things that we think that we can get done, and make sure you're as transparent as humanly possible, because people like authenticity and they can tell if you're not.
Yeah. People are good with snuffing out the fake. And I'll definitely tell you, especially when it comes to like leaders, like I feel like they're always watching how we're moving, how we're acting, and what we're speaking to. Because if we can't signal it, then they're like, this is complete bullshit. Like, we're wasting everyone's time.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, make a vision board, but like, is the vision plain? Like, what are we gonna do to get to that place? So like, I'm absolutely down with that, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Low key, I want to make merch off of that, but we'll talk after that episode to see how we can get that done. But Garima, seriously, you have taken care of my life for the age of 35. So thank you as I get into the new year when it comes to my goal setting. And even like as an HR professional, I'm like, wow, I could definitely put like a training together, even just the conversation about like goal setting and like the right mentality and philosophy behind it, because you could SWOT analysis, SMART, goal all the live long day, but like if you don't have the right mindset behind it, you're wasting everyone's time. And so I'm so thankful to see leaders like yourself in spaces where you're not just talking about it, you are excited about it. Like I feel like we have to keep you in frame every time, because you just start getting like hyped up about it, but that just means like you are a forever student of that. And I think that's like absolutely amazing, and I'm so thankful for that. If people were interested in stalking you politically correct and all that stuff, like where can they find you just to hear more about your excitement about Alice and goal setting and the amazing things you're doing with your business?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Garima Shah. So you can find me there. And then billergenie.com is our company. So you can find me at either place. But I'd love to talk to you all. And this has been such a great conversation. I really appreciate you having me.
No, that part was easy. My goal is to get you back. Okay. We're going to make sure that happens. Oh, period. Absolutely. Well, Garima, thank you so much. And for y'all who have tuned in, whether you're watching or listening, thank you for showing up again for us. The conversation was fire, honestly. We had to reel it back in because we got places to go. But if you want to make sure that you can still keep in touch with us, you know what you can do. That's email us at peopleperson@morningbrew.com, which you can also find in the show notes. So as always, My goal is to see you real soon, so make sure you tune in. Till next time.